Thank you for joining us while we explain how to tear down a ZR5 gearbox in preparation for an 80,000 hour overhaul. The first service action is to remove the drive coupling. This is a taper fit on the shaft. For safety, when you come to pull the coupling off the shaft, put the bolt and the washer back in, loosely assembled. This will stop the coupling jumping forward as it releases. You often have to use heat to remove the coupling if it's very tight. We've now exposed the oil seal ring. This is actually secured on the shaft by an O-ring. As you can see now, we're removing the inner parts of the reverse scroll oil seal. The next action is to remove the bolts that secure the cover to the gearbox and begin to lift out the shaft as shown. It should come very easily. As you can see, the large O-ring that fell away is actually what seals the cover to the gearbox. Removing the large circlip beneath the bearing can be a little tricky, so you need a good set of circlip pliers as shown. We raise the gear about 20 to 30 millimeters above the stand. Sometimes on machines that haven't had the bearings in too long or they've not used Loctite, tapping the end of the shaft will release the shaft from the bearing. However, in this case, this was a very tight one on a machine that had probably done more than 100,000 hours. So we had to use heat. It's better to apply the heat above and below the casting, and as shown, this will quickly release the bearing. Next, we're going to remove the oil seal bush. It's only secured as a shaft on the inside by an O-ring, so it's quite easy to pull off. The first method we're showing here is the correct method. Sometimes the bearing will come quite easily, but in this case this bearing was very, very tight. It's been on more than 100,000 hours. So we started to apply some heat, and again sometimes this will be sufficient for the bearing to come off. But in this case it wasn't going to happen. So what we had to do then was use a slitting saw and cut the bearing down to more manageable parts to remove it. As you'll see now, we're down to a much more manageable condition to pull the inner race off the shaft. We still had to apply heat, and it's probably because in the first instance Loctite's been used on this bearing when it was first applied. It will go quite suddenly as shown and then pull off quite easily. You need to check the shaft now for any wear, any damage, check the teeth are all intact, and just generally look over the whole shaft before we clean it ready for assembly. The next service action is to pull off the drive gear for the oil pump. This is a slight interference fit on the shaft, so leave one of the bolts in, try tapping it with a mallet, and if it won't just come with a mallet, you might have to put a chisel just down the side of it to just loosen it slightly. As you can see, we've now removed it. We're now going to remove the second bearing in a race. You'll notice that we've removed the rollers and plastic cage off this bearing. The race now slips quite easily with a little bit of heat down onto the floor using gravity. Now we move to the gearbox itself and we're going to remove the large inner race. Note that we're using industrial strength pliers for this action. This is quite a simple process. We're going to tap out the outer race as shown. Just use a drift and it should come quite easily. This concludes the major part of stripping down the gearbox before reassembly. The best thing to do now is start to clean it all up, steam clean it, and we'll deal with other items like the oil injectors in the next video, the assembly video, and of course replacing the O-ring behind the eccentric ring. If you need any further information on Ztechnique's alternative spare parts for Atlas Copco equipment, please contact us at ztechnique.co.uk or alternatively send me an email at sales@airhire, that's airhire.co.uk. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.